Today's Mother's Day, and it is a joyous day that I have with my sons who were with me today, as well as my husband. But I do have memories of Mother's Days that have gone past that I find depressing, basically because my mother, who has passed, and I will say this from the outset, that I loved her and I still love her. Towards the end, just before she passed, my mother lived with 3 people in her. There was the mother who was doting, caring, loving. Then there was the mother who was an alcoholic. And my mother was an alcoholic from the time that I guess I was under the age of 8, probably, when some of my premonitions started, my depression started, because when my mother had had enough alcohol to numb her own pain, she created pain in me. And I have suffered from her willingness to be so dangerous as to where I would have to hide, because she would chase me, she would hurt me, and do other things that I'm just not prepared to talk about at the moment. But Mother's Day brings these emotions in me to the surface. And I'm going to just share some of those emotions, because there are children who are now suffering what I did, and there are adults suffering as I am. And even in my old age, the tears flow. Mother's Days. So before she passed, about 2 years before she passed, she had dementia. It was diagnosed. I would visit her frequently, which she wanted to live on her own. And where she lived was about 2 hours each way, which meant 4 hours of travelling for me to go and visit with my mum, which I gladly did. And on these journeys going, I would think, what would she do to me today? What would she say to me today that she would know would hurt me? But she had intent. Even with dementia, the ability in her to want to hurt me was still there. And so I used to be a very different person on the way home in those 2 hours. And before I entered my own home, I would have to erase those feelings and put others in their place. Sometimes that was very hard to do. And so when her dementia became worse, which it does, she became more aggressive, more spiteful. But I loved her. Through all of this, I loved her. And today, as I sit here, I still love her. And I just needed to say to those people who have suffered, and these Mother's Day bring up memories that no one really wants to resurface. But that's life. That's what we must carry. We must carry it in life. My children know nothing of my childhood at the hands of my mother. And I made the commitment to myself before I ever had children that should I have been so lucky enough that God gave me the gift of children, they would never know. And to this day, they're in their 40s and late 30s, they do not know. And they never will know. So the people who are out there like me, who have these conflicted emotions on Mother's Day, you're not alone. There are people who are suffering these days in ways that we can't express. So in quiet moments, like me up here in my bedroom, I can now sit here and release the feelings of sadness, of emptiness, of the longing of the child that I perhaps, and the adult I would have been. We'll never know. But I just want to say also what added to the melancholy of the day was there was a program on the television about the murder of Anita Cobby. And every time I watch that documentary, I cry, because she had parents who adored her, and she was taken from them, and their suffering was palpable, and how she died made their pain ever so much worse. And they had that on today, and I watched it, and my heart was breaking, and I thought, well, I'm here. Anita Cobby isn't. So I had to just pick myself up today from my feelings, but they've returned now when I'm alone in my room. And I just thought I would put my hand out in friendship to those who suffer on these days, that you're just not alone. And I hope tomorrow is a happier day for you. So thank you and good night.